Horror is one of the most well-known and popular genres in film. And while it has created some of the most well-known characters and stories of all time, horror often gets a lot of movies that are just downright awful. So today, we're going to be looking at what is said to be one of, if not the worst horror movie of all time, Manos, The Hands of Fate. Right off the bat, you can immediately tell how terrible the film is going to be by the title alone, because the word Manos is Spanish for the word hands, meaning that the film's title translates to hands, the hands of fate. Absolutely terrific start. The movie begins with a family driving into the city of El Paso, Texas to find a spot for their vacation. These are our main characters. We got Mike the husband, his wife Margaret, and their daughter Debbie. So I'd like to take this time to show you, the viewer, the first line of dialogue in this film.
We're almost there, honey. Just a little while longer and your vacation starts.
I'm getting cold, Mother, and hungry.
Now you may be thinking, that doesn't sound like a little girl at all, and there's a good reason for that, and that reason is that it isn't. You see, the camera used to film this movie had a couple of problems. Problem number one was that it was unable to record audio, and number two, it was unable to record more than 30 seconds of film, meaning that there are bizarre jump cuts and that every person in this film was dubbed by over 3 people. Just 3. They are then pulled over by the police, and here you can see another example of how every single person in the film sounds exactly alike.
All right, mister. I see you have a taillight problem.
No excuse. Running late, first vacation, kid getting tired.
That's too bad.
Well, can't you give us a break, officer?
Well, all right.
The film then cuts to a long and dragged out scene of what I presume is supposed to be a teenage couple making out and drinking in a car. This entire 50-second scene is used just to say that the road that the family has gone down leads to nowhere. This scene could have lasted 5 seconds and the point still would have gotten across. We see the family driving down the long desert road, and surprise surprise, it does indeed lead nowhere. We also see the teenage couple be confronted by the police for a scene, which I presume was put into the film just to stretch the runtime. Then we get a long scene of the family just turning around and driving off for some reason. As the family is trying to leave, they stumble across an old house in the middle of the desert. Just to show you how boring this film is, I'm going to show you just a little scene of them arriving at this house. They then meet Torgo, the master's servant. Torgo tells the family the master wouldn't approve of them staying at the house, but they decide who cares and that they'll be staying anyways.
There is no way out of here. It will be dark soon. There is no way out of here.
What? There's no way out because it's getting dark? Also, you may notice that Torgo has very odd legs. This is because Torgo is supposed to be a satyr, so he's supposed to have goat legs, but really it just looks like he shoved 2 pineapples up his pant legs. Mike and Margaret are frightened by a painting of the master because, as you can see, he looks very intimidating. They also get frightened of a wolf, and when Michael goes out to investigate, their stupid dog gets killed by something. The family decides they've had enough of these desert shenanigans and plan to leave, but the car won't start, so they're stuck there. Also, Torgo puts his hands on Margaret because he wants to make her his wife, even though she's already married and very obviously wants nothing to do with Torgo, and yet she still decides not to tell her husband about what Torgo did. Their daughter Debbie then decides to wander off into the master's quarters and steal the master's Doberman. Also, Margaret does an absolutely fantastic job of looking for her daughter. A+ parent right there. You know, speaking of Doberman, I have my own Doberman, so I'd like to take a quick second here to ask my dog what he thinks about his fellow canine companion in this film. Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of... Today's special guest is a dog by the name of Rex. Rex, the question that the fans are dying to know today is what you think of the Doberman featured in the 1966 film Manos, The Hands of Fate. Rex, if you could do us the honors of telling us your opinion. You heard it here first, folks. Now back to you. So Debbie shows her parents where she found the dog in the master's dungeon? Yeah, dungeon. Oh, and this also means when Margaret peeked behind the door, she just so happened to miss the woman hanging off pillars and the man lying on a stone slab. Torgo then speaks against the master because Torgo wants a beautiful wife of his own like the captain, but he isn't allowed one because the master's too much of a ladies' man. Torgo then knocks out Mike with a shovel, and in another long drawn-out scene, he ties him up against a pole. Also, I'd like to point out that I fell asleep during this scene. Now, we get the moment we've all been waiting for. We finally get to see the Master awaken. And he looks very underwhelming. I mean, he looks like a professional wrestler from the 80s more than he does some master. We then go back to the teenage couple who after several hours are still swapping saliva with one another and are again approached by a police. Again, this scene adds nothing to the movie. So anyways, the master awakens his wives and they all argue over how it isn't right to kill the child, but the master puts an end to all this and tells them to kill the child whether they like it or not. He also goes after Torgo for allowing the family to come into the home. While that happens, the wives all break out into what I would say is the most well choreographed, realistic, and cinematic fight scenes I have ever seen. One of the wives, however, in all the chaos, goes off and kisses Mike, but then she proceeds to beat him. Also, the master finds Margaret and Debbie, but like, he doesn't even do anything to him, he just kind of stares at them through the window and then just leaves. So the master also breaks up the brawl in between his wives, and prepares the first wife so that she can be sacrificed along with Torgo. Torgo then, in another very well choreographed scene, gets viciously beat. And he gets his hand blown off. And then the master slaps his wife to death. Anyway, after that, Mike escapes and then he saves his wife and daughter and they flee to hide in the desert. But Margaret keeps being dramatic and saying how she won't make it even though it's only been like 20 seconds that they've been running. Like, come on lady, not even your daughter's complaining.
Out Mojo incoming! 30!
No, Maggie, we can make it. We'll rest here for a minute. We can make it.
Let's go back. They'll never think of looking for us at the house.
You know, you might have a point there.
What? That is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. It's the master's house. They're gonna go back and find you. Maybe because, you know, it's their house and that's where they live. Then we get another pointless scene of the police saying that they heard gunshots but that it was probably from Mexico. Also, the cop isn't even using like an actual flashlight. So they go back to the house only to find out that the master's there. So Mike pulls out his pistol and shoots the master, except when he shoots, there's nobody there. And then when you do see the master, he's extremely blurry for some reason. We then cut to the next day, where we could see two young ladies also stumbling upon the house after getting lost. As they approach the house, they are then greeted by Michael, as we see Margaret and Debbie have been taken as new wives to the master, even though Debbie is, you know, a child. And that's all. That's the end. Or is it? No, yeah, it's the end, because there was never a sequel. You know, this movie's bad for a lot of reasons, and one of them is its tragic backstory. You see, the actor who played Torgo was a drug addict, and he was known for using them all the time during filming. And shortly before the film was released, Torgo's actor sadly took his own life. Another big problem with this film is just how boring it is. It's not the type of film where it's so bad that it's good, it's just boring. The Room is a film that is known only because it is so bad, but it's loved by many just because it's so bad that it becomes funny.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Manos, however, has nothing going for it. The little girl who played Debbie actually wrote a book about being in one of the worst films ever made. This video, doesn't do justice to how boring this film actually is. And if you want to experience it for yourself, the entire movie is really easy to find on the internet. But to conclude, Manos is the most boring film I've ever seen. The acting and dubbing are horrible, the plot doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and the entire film looks like it was edited on a blender.